So I looked at the list of companies that we might potentially be outsourced to and did some research on all three of those companies and looked for the good points. Now, they're all big companies, they're all global companies, they're all IT companies. And I was particularly excited that one of them was IBM because in the UK, there was zero chance that any of us could have gotten a job at IBM. You needed to be best in your year. You needed to be the Dean's List. You needed to be winning all the prizes. You needed to, have also shown summer jobs in the US and, I don't know, you were saving Romanian orphans on weekends and, you would need to be spectacular in order to get in there. Their hiring scheme was ridiculous and none of us would have got in. We had degrees, we had experience, but, we couldn't have got in. And so I said, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. There is every chance that we will become employees of IBM through this deal. And once we are employees of IBM, you do not need to stay here working in this job where you have been unable to progress for the last several years because there's nowhere to go. Because, my service desk, all of them wanted to progress to desk side support, but there were less jobs in desk side support than there were in service desk. And the service desk, the desk side support people wanted to move into the network team or the server team, and there were less jobs in the network team or the server team than there were in desk side support. So your chances to progress were almost impossible, because no one had actually left the server team or the network team or the desktop team in forever. So, no one was moving anywhere. But when we were in IBM, there would be many opportunities. As a massive company, we could move on. And so they announced eventually that IBM had been chosen. And so by that point, my team were actually quite excited. And I then went on to stage 2 of my attack. And so I started reaching out to people within IBM and reaching out to the people managers that would be leading teams like my team, and reaching out to all of them, finding out what accounts they had, finding out what the procedure was, what the possibilities were. Could I loan my team out to work on other accounts so that they could get some other experience on other accounts in other teams in other areas? And they all said yes, because in fact, when you loan them an employee, they're getting someone to work for nothing, really, and some other account is paying for it. So all of them said yes. And so all of my team members, when we went into IBM, started going out one day or half a day a week to other companies, to other accounts, and learning other jobs, other skills. And within 3 months of us joining IBM, they had all been offered other jobs. And this was critical to me, because I had talked to some companies who had been outsourced to IBM, and their employees were still working in the same roles, in servicing the same account that they had joined IBM 5 years ago, and there was no difference to them. They didn't even know what it was like to be an employee of IBM, because although they had the blue badge, they were still doing the same job that they had done for the same company. And I didn't want that for mine. If we were going to be outsourced, then we were going to see advantages from it rather than, see it as a problem. We were going to benefit from it. And they did. They all moved on, and they all got new careers out of it. Yeah, I think the options were probably not like the other two companies. The options is probably the options for us in terms of we could have stayed in our own little tower, just carried on as if nothing had changed. And the other opportunity was to go out and to see different careers in different companies and different options, and to move and grow. And and indeed, actually, not everyone did as I suggested. So actually, my boss would not jump on this boat with me, and he was super upset by the fact that the company he had worked for more than 25 years was, casting him aside. And he didn't want to. He didn't want to join IBM. He didn't want to leave that company. He just, it broke him. And he wanted them to offer him a redundancy so that he could just leave and just, do something completely different, because it was all just too heartbreaking for him. And I had prepped all of my team for the interviews we would do when we went to the IBM, so that they would know where to place us, because they wouldn't necessarily trust the levels that we had given them previously. And my boss went in at one level below two of the lads that worked for me, because he wouldn't say anything to spruik himself. He didn't want it. He just wanted to quit, and they wouldn't let him. First of all, they made him carry on for like a year, and then eventually they gave in and gave him his redundancy. But to me, that's the real shame, when you won't change, when you won't try something new, because he was definitely one of the best bosses I've ever had. He really cared about his staff. He really cared about his team. A lot of the manager that I became is because of I saw the way that he treated his team. And yeah, he could have been a tremendous force within IBM, but he wouldn't. And mindset.